Aloha everyone, this is Dr. BethAnne. I am an author, intuitive psychologist, and an empath, and I craft content for highly sensitive spiritual souls. I also teach, coach, and mentor on intuitive living. We have been talking about the theme of self-acceptance for the month of September here on my YouTube channel. And in yesterday's video, I was talking about accepting and trusting our emotions and taking them, like meeting them at face value, but not taking them at face value. Meeting them at face value in the sense of if emotions are coming up, they're messengers, the messengers from our body, from our heart, from our mind, from our circumstances, and they're messengers that have something to tell us. And so we can trust them, and then we do the work by following the thread of the emotion and figuring out, what is this trying to tell me? What message does this have for me? This isn't a linear process. Sometimes we're going to sit down with our journal and we are going to bust out some like awesome insights and be like, okay, I get it. I get why I felt mad today, or what this was about for me, and other times, especially if our soul is in transformation and unfolding something, we might only get like bits and pieces of what an emotion is. But I'm going to give you 4 things to ask today when you're working through your emotions, and I highly recommend using your journal to address these questions when you have emotions coming up that feel, I'm just going to say, confusing. If you're feeling like super happy and super joyful and you're at ease, that's probably not the stuff that you're analyzing. Like, it's great if you are, if you want to think about, why do I feel so happy right now? And how can I like create more of that energy in my life? Awesome. Let's do that. But I'm assuming the journal, as it usually does, comes out when we have questions about our life path. It comes out when we are feeling something that feels in conflict. It feels confusing. It feels kind of nebulous. We feel kind of clouded on something. And so when we have emotions coming up, the first thing that's really helpful is identifying what they are. And if you can't name them, like you can't say, I feel sad, or I feel heartbreak, or I feel grief, or I feel angry, maybe they're just a color. I feel really gray today. I feel blue. I feel maybe it's something somatic. My stomach feels really off. I feel like something's wrong and I don't know what it is. Just kind of name it in your own vocabulary, because this is about you being your own expert. So you use your own vocabulary. And then here's the 4 questions that you can ask yourself. This is not an exhaustive list. It's just something that popped in my mind as a tool. Question number 1, is this coming from my heart? And the best way to answer that is to put your hand on your heart, to close your eyes, to take a deep breath to drop into your heart, and then another deep breath to listen, and ask yourself that question and see if your heart gives you any wisdom. Is this coming from my heart? Second question to ask, is this coming from a story I'm telling myself? And that's where we get to have a little bit of fun, because we get to go into our communication with ourselves. What is my thought life surrounding this? Is this coming from a story I'm telling myself? And if so, what's the story? And do I like this story? Is this a new story? Is this like a history story coming from somebody from my past, coming from past me, coming from like society? We get to do a little bit of work around the story. And we get to rewrite the story if we don't like the story we're telling ourselves. That's a great journaling tool as well. And then the next question is this coming from outside circumstances? So for example, a really stressful day where you maybe don't have any time for yourself and you have lots of demands pulling at you and you feel like stretched thin like a tension cord, and you finally have time to sit down and maybe you just feel really lost and confused, you might be able to like kind of delve into saying, gosh, I've had no time to breathe lately. I have been maybe showing up for all the other people in my life. I feel really stretched thin and I'm really stressed out. And so I think some of my like emotional, we'll call it emotional gray, is coming from outside circumstances. And then we get to work with that. Is there anything we can do to change that, fix that, troubleshoot that, just surrender to it if it's a busy season in life? And then the last question to ask ourselves, especially if you've just answered a yes, it's coming outside of me, are there any other people influencing my emotional states? And that's where our relationships come into play. And I feel as sensitive souls and empaths, this is really important because we often hold emotional awareness of the people around us. So if we have a partner who is going through something and they're really upset, there's a good chance we're going to feel that. If we have a child who is experiencing something, there's a good chance we're going to feel that. If we have anybody that we have a strong energetic cord to, they don't even have to be in the same room with us. We can know somebody's upset with us in another state or another country from us, but if there's something happening energetically that hasn't been clarified and cleared on our end, we can be empathically holding that information. So do a check, because sometimes we're holding information and it's like not even our own. Some of it might be, but I know a lot of empaths who at times will just feel massive amounts of grief, and it's really coming more from the collective. It's coming from what's going on in society and what's going on a global level, and they're just kind of feeling the earth cry out and feeling those things. And then we get to make decisions about that. We can choose to be present with issues of social justice and the environment and things that we see going on in our world. We might pray for it. We might send light. We might do a little bit of work around that. We might realize that what we're holding is somebody else's stuff, an ex's stuff maybe, or an old friend, or somebody who's not doing their emotional work. And that's when we might do an empathic or an energetic cleansing or a cord cutting or something to say, I always say, angels, take from me anything I'm carrying that is not mine to carry. Take it up and return it to the light in love. If that doesn't work for you, you can also say, may anything I'm carrying that's no longer mine to carry and not serving me fall away from me and be returned to the earth to be transmuted into love. So there's a ton of stuff that we can do with that. But those are 4 easy ways to identify what's going on, to work on increasing your emotional awareness and intelligence around it, and then to figure out, what do you want to do with it? Does it even require that you do anything? Just want to be with it. So is it coming from my heart? Is it coming from a story I'm telling myself? And if so, what's the story and what do I think about that story? Where did that story come from? Is it coming from outside circumstances? And is it coming from outside influences of other people or collective energies? And grab your journal and do your work and ground into you and continue to maintain a sense of being an expert on yourself and being an expert and trusting yourself to work through those emotional states. So with that, I will be back tomorrow with more content. Have an amazing rest of the day. If you enjoy my channel and you haven't already subscribed, I encourage you to do so by clicking the little red subscribe thing. And if you enjoy my work and want to know more, I do one-on-one intuitive mentorship and coaching along with Akashic and angel readings. And I also have books and courses and all sorts of things to support you on the path. You can find all of that on my website, BethAnneKW.com. Aloha and light. Thank you so much for joining me in this space. I appreciate you.